A caseworker at my door showed me adoption papers and said, "You're not their biological child. Your real parents have been searching for you for 30 years. I stood in my doorway holding my 2-year-old son on my hip, staring at the woman who'd just shattered my understanding of my own existence. She was in her 50s with graying hair pulled into a practical ponytail, wearing a county employee badge that identified her as Leslie Ortega, Family Services Division. The manila folder in her hands looked worn, like it had been opened and closed countless times over the years. "I'm sorry," she said, and her voice carried the weight of someone who'd delivered terrible news before. "I know this is shocking, but I need to speak with you about your adoption, specifically about irregularities in the paperwork filed when you were 3 years old. Your biological parents, Richard and Susan Novak, have been searching for you since 1995. They never consented to your adoption. According to our investigation, you were taken from them under false pretenses." My son squirmed in my arms, and I set him down automatically, my hands shaking. Behind me, my wife Amanda appeared from the kitchen, drawn by the unfamiliar voice. "David, what's going on?" she asked. I couldn't answer because my brain was stuck on one impossible statement. I wasn't their biological child. The people I'd called mom and dad my entire life, Gerald and Diane Thompson, had adopted me, except I'd never known I was adopted. Every document I'd ever seen said they were my birth parents. My birth certificate listed Diane as my mother and Gerald as my father. I had baby photos in their house, had grown up hearing stories about my difficult birth and my early years. How could any of that be fake? "There must be a mistake," I said, finding my voice. "I'm not adopted. I have a birth certificate. I've seen it. My parents are Gerald and Diane Thompson. They've never said anything about adoption." Leslie Ortega's expression was a mixture of sympathy and something harder, more determined. "Mr. Thompson, I understand this is overwhelming, but the birth certificate you've seen was falsified. Your biological parents are Richard and Susan Novak from Oregon. In 1995, when you were 3 years old, a social worker named Catherine Brennan removed you from their custody based on fabricated abuse allegations. The Novaks fought the removal, but by the time courts ruled in their favor, you'd already been placed with the Thompsons through a private adoption that was pushed through with fraudulent documentation. The Novaks never stopped searching for you. They've spent 30 years and their entire savings trying to find their son." Amanda moved closer and put her hand on my arm. "This can't be real. David's parents are upstairs right now. They live in our guest suite. They'd have told us if David was adopted. My parents had moved in 6 months ago after my father's health declined. They were in their late 70s now, and I'd been taking care of them because that's what family did. Except if what this caseworker was saying was true, they'd stolen my entire identity." Leslie pulled a photograph from her folder and held it up. "This is you at age 2 with Richard and Susan Novak." The photo showed a toddler with my exact features, sitting between a couple in their late 20s. The man had my nose and jawline. The woman had my eyes and the same widow's peak hairline I'd inherited, or thought I had. The little boy in the photo was wearing overalls and holding a stuffed elephant, laughing at the camera with pure joy. I felt dizzy looking at it because that child was unmistakably me, but I had no memory of these people or that moment. "The Novaks have been working with a private investigator for 15 years, Leslie continued. "They finally tracked you down 3 months ago through DNA database matching. You registered with one of those ancestry websites last year, and your DNA flagged as a familial match to samples the Novaks had submitted to multiple databases. They contacted our department, and we've been investigating the original adoption case. What we found was systematic fraud and corruption. Catherine Brennan, the social worker who removed you from the Novaks, was part of a scheme that stole children from fit parents and placed them with wealthy couples who paid substantial fees for private adoptions. She falsified abuse reports, manipulated evidence, and worked with corrupt officials to push through adoptions that should never have been approved." I heard a sound behind me and turned to see my father, Gerald, standing at the top of the stairs, and what happened next changed everything. Full story is linked below or on my channel.